Welcome to the Dice Tower, a series of video reviews about board and card games. Here are your hosts.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Dice Tower review. My name is Z Garcia.
I'm Chris Yee.
I'm Mike Delicio.
And I'm Roy Kennedy.
Today, we're taking a look at a board game based on an extremely popular video game. This is Stardew Valley, the board game. Now, Stardew Valley, for those of you that don't know, not sure why you're here, but that's okay, is a video game. It's a farming simulator in which you run a little farm. In Stardew Valley, you are going to grow your crops, harvest them, grow and have animals, and you are going to sell resources, improve your living conditions, all sorts of things. It's basically a game that goes on for quite a bit of time, and many folks out there have poured dozens, if not hundreds and hundreds of hours into the video game. I myself have played a decent amount, but today we're not talking about that. We're going to be talking about this board game, which is a co-op board game that attempts to simulate some of the things you do in the video game. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at how it works. We're going to go to Chris, who's going to show you what this looks like and how it plays.
Welcome to the idyllic farm town of Stardew Valley. In this game, 2 to 4 players are going to cooperatively try and accomplish 10 objective cards that are laid out. 4 of them, Grandpa's goals, are face up from the beginning and indicate things that you have to accomplish by the end of the game. Have animals equal to 2 times the number of players, or buildings equal to the number of players, and so on. These other 6, however, are rooms of the rec center that you are trying to repair, and we don't know what repairs they need just yet. We'll need to flip these over the course of the game to accomplish them. How the game starts is that a season card will be flipped over. At the start of each round, a season card flips over, which indicates different events that will take place. First, all of the crops that are in the farm spaces will upgrade per the star. Then all plants out here will be watered, advancing 1 space closer to coming off the board and becoming available for the players. This indicates that an event card will fire off. In this case, we find a meteorite, and players can get stone or ore if they so choose. So one player will get a stone and the next player will get an ore. Fantastic. And then lastly, players are able to trade or to sell. After this intro phase, then players will plan. The players will discuss what actions they're going to take and set out their people into different available actions. Now in this case, the first player is going to water the crops with their first action, which allows this parsnip to come on off and get out here onto their board. The player will take a second action and has the choice of either taking an action in the same group of actions that they are in, or they can move. If the player moves to a new area, they can also forage a tile off the map, in this case taking this leek. They'll get a leek and add it to their player board. Players are space limited on what they have. For the second action, maybe this person is going to try to make a friend of the villagers by revealing a villager card, flipping it over, and giving them a gift of a resource. You can see on this side here, these are the things that George does not want. He will not accept these gifts. He'll accept anything else. But if you give him a forageable that has a matching resource type, then not only will he give you 1 heart, but he'll give you a second heart. If you happen to get it within the same season of the year as his birthday, then he'll give you a 3rd heart. In this case, we befriend George by gifting him this leek, and then he becomes a friend and can give us ongoing benefits over the course of the game. But currently, he also gives us 2 hearts. At the end of a player's turn, after they've taken their 2 actions, they'll return back home, and they can trigger one of these end-of-turn effects. Then the next player will go, and in this case, they're here at the community center. Perfect. They can spend hearts equal to the number of players in this game to reveal these cards, these target objective cards. In this case, by taking the community center action in the future, we need to try and give forageables equal to the number of players, particularly spring forageables. So players will be earning hearts to unveil more of these cards over the course of the game, and of course must unveil them and accomplish all of them before the time runs out. Once all players have returned home, oh, look at that, this person can, as their end of turn effect, upgrade their starting tool by paying this copper ore and turn their pickaxe from a level 0 into a level 1 pickaxe, giving them more abilities to dig in the mines. After this is done, players will reveal another card, go through all of this again, the planning phase, and then take the actions. So what are the available actions? You saw how some of these worked, but you can also buy seeds and place them out into the fields. You spend a coin and can place them out here to make them worth this many coins, 3 and 4, but they have to start on those numbered spaces, taking the watering action to move them forward until they fall off the farm track and onto players' boards. Players can also water the crops, which is how you saw that these came out. They can collect from animals. Eventually you'll be able to get animals, and you'll roll the animal dice to try and get their symbol showing. So if I owned, fantastic roll, Chris, if I owned a duck, he could give me magical duck feathers whenever I roll the duck face of the animal dice. Moving along to here, you can explore the mine by rolling these event dice here. And you see I rolled a heart and a star fruit, which means I can look at the coordinates of the mine here and take a heart star fruit in this corner or in this corner and gain whatever the benefits are. I can buy buildings. That's how I could buy the coop in order to get some of these animals, the barn to get some of the other farm animals, or one of these buildings that are worth special abilities. There are 3 different types of fishing locations: lake to fish for green fish, ocean to try and fish for gray fish, or river to get blue ones. When I fish in one of those locations, I declare which one I'm going lake fishing. I rolled the dice, and here in the lake, I needed a heart and a green symbol, and I could catch this particular type of fish. What for? To sell for money or to complete specific types of objectives. As I go down this way, I can open geodes I might get from the mine or donate to the museum specific types of minerals or artifacts that I find. And if I can, say this B artifact, I can donate to the B slot. And if I complete an entire column, I get an epic item, which very well may be something to help us accomplish great things over the course of the game. Down here, okay, so we did these ones. You can buy animals at this spot. You can go river fishing. So I think that covers pretty much all of the actions that you would expect to see. If we can reveal and complete all of these cards in the community center, and at the end of the game, if we have enough of every resource or accomplishment to complete the Grandpa's objectives, then we'll have won. And that's Stardew Valley.
Now, as far as components go in the game, I think overall they're pretty good, but there are a couple of issues. The 2 main ones I can think of are the tiles. Many of the tiles don't really punch out clean, so you have to be extremely careful when you are punching out the tiles, and there are a ton of tiles. Mm-hmm. It took me a very long time to punch them, being extremely careful, and then trimming some of the sort of leftover paper that came off when I was punching those tiles. Thankfully, they mostly punched the paper ripped the good way. I only had one tile that ripped onto the tile surface, which is unfortunate, but not too many of them. And then the other thing is that one of the components, the Joja tiles, half of them are punched one way and the other half are punched the other way. So that you can always, you can tell. I ended up just throwing mine in a bag, shuffling them up in there, and then pulling out one when I need one. But that's a weird mistake that somehow got past them.
Interesting.
What did you think of all of the bits, Chris?
Well, so I think one of the first things that should be said is that it's gorgeous. It's really well made. Obviously, they have the benefit of the video game to take the art assets and everything from. So it's beautiful. But I did notice all of those flaws that you're talking about, and other people have mentioned the Joja tiles thing. So it's not just one copy that was misprinted or whatever. I'm guessing that this is the whole first print run of it is going to be that way. I'm actually going to pass it over to Mike to talk a little bit more about the tiles, I think.
Yeah, so I had a similar issue that you did with the tiles. The other thing I want to point out is that I did the unboxing for our copy of it here, or I think it was Tom's copy. And there was even some slight offset printing. Now, it was nothing that was game-breaking where you couldn't tell what the tile was supposed to be, but there's double-sided tiles, and there was a bit of offset printing that I noticed. these are all, again, not game breaking, like you said. I also had one tile where the peeling went in the wrong direction. Otherwise, it was okay. I also have an issue with my board. I don't think it's the best quality board either. It's a 4-fold board, and mine kind of lifts up on one edge, and so it's noticeable. Again, it doesn't affect gameplay at all, but it is there, and it is something to take note of. I also do though agree with you, Chris, that I think that the art assets are well done, and it looks nice. It looks nice on the table. I do like, and it's almost fundamentally necessary to have that tray for the crop tiles and the animal product tiles. That really does improve the usability. I can't imagine, honestly, playing the game without that, personally. So, Roy, did you have anything outside of those?
I think I want to agree with Chris that the game looks really cute. I really enjoy like the theme of Stardew Valley, and I think the way they had all of the graphic design and the art together looks great. But I also agree that for like hobby market style stuff, this is like slightly like substandard as far as quality and stuff goes. It's probably a little bit better than most mass market things you would get, but I think this was also like printed in the States as well.
Yes.
So it's kind of interesting, like the whole dynamic of that, as far as like where they were maybe trying to figure out with costs and things like that. But you have to be really careful when you punch those tiles out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you were talking about experience, Roy, so we should probably talk about that. You know, this is a game that it's important, I think, for folks watching this, knowing how much experience with the video game we're bringing to the table, how much that's going to color our enjoyment of the game. You know, how we will draw, you know, information and correlations to the video game if you've played it, and that cannot be understated. It definitely matters. You know, if I play a Marvel board game and I really like Marvel, it will enhance that at least somewhat. So I guess I'll start. I have played a decent amount of the video game. I don't know, let's call it 20 hours or so. And I really do enjoy it. I think it's got a great feedback loop. I think the game is very charming, is an important word there. And it's very engaging. It's one that continues to evolve as you are playing. Right. And I do like it quite a bit. Chris, have you played the video game?
I haven't. I know that it is a video game, and that's about where my knowledge ends on it.
Look, when you look at me, I'm sure that first thing you think is that I'm on the cutting edge of everything that is in popular culture. I mean, Look, I get it. But I honestly have played very little of Stardew Valley. I think I downloaded it on my phone, played it for a little bit, and not for any particular reason did I not really follow up on it. I think I got the sense very early that it would be a big time sink, and so I decided to just, not continue to play it. I'm familiar with it, but I don't really have a lot of the background on it. Roy, what are your experience with it?
I've played the game a decent amount. I mean, normally when you think about it, like, oh man, a farming simulator, is that the sort of video game that I'd be super excited about? But it also has like mechanics with the mine, with combat and all sorts of stuff like that. I enjoy the video game a decent amount, and I feel like this is going to help people. Like, if you really enjoy the video game, you're going to get more out of this game itself. My wife played this game an insane amount. Basically everything you could do in the game, she basically did everything. So, but yeah, we have a decent amount of experience with there. I played probably a few years of it because you go through different seasons and things like that. But definitely didn't explore the entire thing that the game has to offer. But I thought it's a very good, little farming game.
Yeah, and farming sims are a huge genre of video games. And I do tend to like those, Story of Seasons and Harvest Moon,
it's very
Stardew
peaceful.
Valley. Yeah, they are, and they have a great feedback loop that just sort of hooks you, a very potato chip mentality.
One more day.
Just
One more day.
Yeah. So there is that. Now, those games are also highly replayable, so we should talk about that when it comes to Stardew Valley, the board game. I personally think there is a very good amount of content in this box. This is the kind of game that feels like there might be expansion content in here already. If you hadn't told me what came in the box with how much variability there is in setup and the amount of resources in it, it feels like it'll stay interesting and fresh for a long time. I especially like the decks of cards. There's a deck of item cards, which has a ton of cards in there, and that's great to discover the new things you'll find in there, and events that happen both at the mine and just elsewhere. So I think the replayability is pretty good. Chris, you got anything to add to that? The replay value of it?
I agree that it is surprising to me how thick those decks are I think of the mine map in general, right? Where you complete a level of the mine and you pull out a new map card. My concern is from the gamer perspective, and the board gamer snob that I am. I look at some of those items, I look at some of those mine cards, and I think, this one's just not very good. Pass. I want to see the next one, right? And so I think the replayability is good because you're going to see a huge amount of variety, but I'm concerned that some of the variety isn't good or maybe doesn't translate that great from the video game to the board game. So that's for me. I'm not sure about you, Mike.
Yeah, no, I do feel like there's a lot of replayability, and it's mainly, that's easy for me to say, mainly going to be in those goals that you're going for, where you've got the grandpa's goals, and then you've got the different parts of the community center that you're trying to complete. And that's something I did want to point out. The grandpa's goals are random. You're picking from, I think, 8. You're going to choose 4 of them randomly and put them out. That's known information at the beginning of the game. Hey, we need to get these 4 things done. But these rooms are unknown information until you flip them over through spending hearts. But I think it's important, if you're playing this game for the first time, since it is a cooperative game, I think that it would behoove you to find out what are the possible things that we could be going for, right? So that you're not going in completely blind. Like maybe someone like me, for example, went into my first game. I had no idea what I might even be going for. I don't think that that's cheating, but I think that's where the replayability comes from.
I mean, it spells it out very clearly in the rulebook what each type of room is going to require, too.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, that's true. But that's a good point. But I feel like that's where the replayability comes along, is that you're going to be essentially doing the same actions every game, but you're going to be focusing on different things. Like there was one game where we never went to the museum at all because it wasn't one of the things we had to do. So that's kind of what I'm getting at there. So Roy, what do you think on that, replayability-wise?
I think another thing that adds a lot to the replayability can be the different season cards. There's a set of like starting season cards that you can have in the game.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're necessarily easier than the other ones, but it's like this will kind of give you a little bit of the taste of all different ones. But those season cards don't have like the holidays and things like that, like Easter and different things like that in there. When you play the game more, you can shuffle in those and mix those together so you're not exactly sure what's going to happen. And there could be different holidays that pop up and different events, whether they be positive or negative events, depending on if there's like crows messing up your stuff or more or less Joja tiles or more times that you just randomly get to water your stuff for free. So yeah, you can mix that up and that'll add a lot of replayability because each time you play the game, you might not know exactly which events are going to come out for you.
Yeah, I think those cards, the starting ones, they're just meant to sort of smooth out the curve of that first play.
Right.
And I agree with you, Mike. This is a game, I think, that the first time you play might give you a worse impression than the game ends up being, just simply based on the lack of familiarity, okay? Now, Chris was talking about the experience that you're expecting from the game, and that's something we should dive into, okay? Who this game is for, because you said, again, like a gamer. Is this game for a gamer? Is this game for someone whose favorite game might be, say, Monopoly, somewhere in between? And with that comes a couple of things, which I think are always part of that discussion. That is game length, and that is luck. We should go into that, okay? For me, personally, I think it's somewhere in between. I don't think this is a game that a lot of Agricola players are going to enjoy. I doubt it. It's just not that serious. It also is a fairly long game, especially with more than 2 players. And in fact, I wouldn't recommend the game with more than 2 players. I think it just gets too drawn out. It's going to be too long. And at that point, you are really going to start feeling that luck just hammer you. Because the game certainly is lucky, okay? The first play of it I had, I felt that very much. And I thought it was a very charming game, and I enjoyed my first play. But second play of it, going in knowing, hey, this game has luck. Hey, you know what these rooms look like. I had a much better time the second play, and in fact was able to win the second play. So that's kind of where I come down on that. I think the luck is there, and I think this game is lucky. I don't have a major problem with the luck as long as I'm keeping the play count at 2. I really don't. It's that kind of game, and I'm okay with it. I've accepted it in this game. I think it's part of the way this feels. Chris, what do you think about that?
I have played this game at 2, and I played it at 3 players. I could not imagine playing it at 4 personally because of that reason. Mm-hmm. Becomes longer and drawn out, and then the luck is more impactful in a lot of ways. It's definitely impactful regardless of how you play. Even if you play the short mode or whatever, you might even be technically more impactful, but the way that it feels, if you're going to be invested at this table longer, I don't want that as much. But like I said, that is me coming from not knowing the video game and from being, a very seasoned gamer, so to speak. Whereas, and I was thinking about this, who is this for? I think that the people who play games like Monopoly, it's easy to kind of make fun of, right? But people who sit down and play Monopoly regularly and love gaming, that's their game. I think they're going to enjoy this because it's more thinky, obviously, and it takes more planning. But people who play Monopoly for 3 or 4 hours a night don't mind game length and don't mind a bit of luck affecting their play. And I think this is going to be actually a really cool experience for them to say, we work on the same team? How cool is this?
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Yeah, I do too. And look, it is long. I think that player count is potentially an issue because it's just the way the game scales. You're trying to complete missions, you're trying to complete goals, and everything is just multiplied by number of players. That's just a central conceit of the game. If you need 1 crop and 1 heart for 1 player, you'll need 2 crops and 2 hearts for 2 players, etc. That's just how the scaling works. I do want to point out, though, that the rule book does address both of these issues to an extent. It certainly addresses game length. There is a shorter game variant for you. You could also address some of the luck involved by having some of those bundles, perhaps even all the way to all of them being revealed at the beginning of the game. That would take away from some of the luck factor. So I'm glad that they did address that. It means that there must have been some play testing where this came up. It's something that I think if you realize it going into the game, it's not necessarily a huge issue. Because any game that involves, flipping over of cards blindly, of rolling dice, you have to assume there's going to be some luck involved. The main thing here is that there's maybe not as much mitigation as hobby gamers might be used to. Just know that going in, and if you're okay with that, I think you'll be all right with that. But it is a long game. There's no two ways about it. It's a long game. Roy? Yeah.
I think this game is very good for the video game crowd that dabbles into board games but isn't a hobby board gamer. I think that's kind of the niche that this would fit really good into. They know about Munchkin, they know about some of the social deduction games, but they don't necessarily play, they're not on Board Game Geek every weekend researching the newest Lacerda game, That's not the thing that's going on here. I think the game there's a decent amount of rules and a decent amount of the way the stuff works, but the fact that it's cooperative, I think will allow the barrier of entry to not be as high on this. I actually really enjoy some luck in my games here and there. I enjoy the replay value that allows to have, and especially on a cooperative game, it's almost no, we got ourselves in trouble in this thing. It's not like somebody is edging out ahead of the other players because they got so lucky. And as a team, you have to try to figure out how to best deal with the randomness you're given. But yeah, I think this is all about, they had a video game and they wanted to make the board game feel like the video game, and they kind of did that every step along the way with this game, which is kind of crazy because if you've played the video game, as you're playing this, you're going to be like, oh yeah, just like the video game. Oh yeah, and that, just like the video game. And without that experience, people might not see that. So I think this fits really good for that, casual tabletop gamer, video game crowd.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it should be understated that being a fan of the video game is going to be a nice boost to what you might end up thinking about this board game. Okay, there are other games like Battlestar Galactica, the board game, is one I played without having ever seen the show. Didn't feel like it mattered. I think for this, it would matter. Okay, and with that, let's go ahead and do final scores. Anything else you want to say at the end? And then your score. Chris, you're up first.
All right. My thought on this is, if I were to approach this on on more perhaps of an objective scale, I look at this game as incredibly well crafted. It's clearly not a cash grab. I think that's everyone's biggest concern. Is this a cash grab? It's not. It's really finely crafted in a lot of ways, including, as Roy had talked about, that game, the tray. That reminds me almost of like a Feast for Odin. It's very thoughtful to put a tray where all the tokens can go into and stuff. But for me, to actually review this game from the amount of fun that I had, not knowing the IP and not knowing all of that kind of going into it, this one is for me is a 6. I don't really want to keep coming back to it. It's fun, but it's too much of an investment. So that's for me.
All right, Mike.
Yeah, I actually like it slightly more than Chris, although I think I'm probably going to be playing this mostly as a solo game. I think it will shine that way. I'm coming in at a 7. I have some significant issues with the game, most of which I've mentioned. I think there are component issues. I think you have to be willing to take on the luck. I also have a feeling, though, that if I was a regular player of the video game, I'd probably be coming in at an 8, because I almost feel like at the end of playing this game a few times, the board game, I almost feel like I've played the video. You know what I mean? I feel like I know the video game, even though I've barely played it, because this just feels like it is. Everything about the design feels like it is evoking something. You know what I mean? Like
it's a loving design. You can kind of tell that they love the source material. Yeah.
Absolutely. And to echo Chris, it's definitely not a cash grab. I feel like, this is a game that a lot of care and effort and love was put into. And so I'm going to give it a 7. I recommend it, although I do have some significant issues with it.
I'm going to go with a 7.5. I really enjoyed the game, and I do know the source material, and I think it's really cool the way that they put a bunch of the stuff into the game. I love the fact that there's relationships, and there's people that you have to do this and that, and you're trying to build the community center, and they've got different ways to like, okay, well, this card and flip this out, and they've got fishing, and they've got mining, and they've got all the different stuff that you love from the video game is put into this, and I think it's pretty cool that it is you have to take this with a casual approach to really enjoy the game, because there is that luck and all that stuff. But this is one you could sit down and be like, okay, family, let's play this together. If you have a family with people that enjoy Stardew Valley, I think you could get a lot of fun out of this game. So 7.5 for me.
I think you'd hit the nail on the head there, Roy, when you say casual gamers. You know, this is, and not to say if you do like Lacerda or like Agricola, you won't enjoy this. But you do need to leave a little bit of that, those expectations at the door. The idea that this is a serious gamer's game. It's just not. You can still enjoy it, but it's just not the same kind of game coming from the same place. There's a different philosophy behind this. I happen to like that philosophy. Yes, there's a lot of luck in it, absolutely. But if I get over myself and just play this, then I have a good time with it, you know?
Right.
I also really like something we kind of alluded to, Mike did a little bit, that it's very easy to adjust difficulty in this game. Not luck, okay? You there's luck and you'll deal with luck. But difficulty, there is so much that you can change as far as how many cards begin revealed, how many, there's so much to modify there to make the game fit what you want. And I really like that. So I'm actually giving it the highest score at the table here. I'm rating it an 8 out of 10. I really had a great time with it. I've played it 2-player. I don't want to change that. I'm happy with that. More than that, it's just too long, as we've said. So 8 out of 10 from me. So that is Stardew Valley, the board game, folks. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you have an idea of if this is something that might be ultimately for you. And if not, that's okay too, but I think you might like it, especially if you like some Stardew Valley video game. So that's going to do it for us. My name is Z Garcia.
I'm Chris Yee.
I'm Mike Delisio.
And I'm Roy Kennedy.
And you've been watching The Dice Tower. Thanks, everybody, and have fun gaming.